So we got a number of questions in the question and answer section, and I'm going to try to sort of condense them a little bit and see if we can make this a fairly fast process here. So there was a lot of several people in their questions were making the comment that, look, this is good information, but unless the planning department, the planning commission, excuse me, and the board of supervisors is listening, it's only going to be heard by us. And so, you know, how do we get the commissioners and the board of supervisors to listen? Are they only going to be listening to the planning department? Like, how do we expect this process to go? Anyone want to take that? Ralph? You can unmute yourself.
Yeah, so the planning commission will hear they'll have a hearing and they'll consider the EIR, and they'll have to certify it or else not certify it. And I would hope that they won't certify this EIR, at which point I would expect that it might be appealed and go to the board of supervisors. But they might end up certifying, or they might actually send it back to go back to be recirculated, which is what we would have expected them to do in the first place. Then it goes to the board of supervisors, and ultimately it'll end up on the board of supervisors to make an up or down vote on the project. And they would have, at some point, the final EIR has to be certified, and then it also if there's overriding, I mean, if there's unavoidable and significant impacts, they have to have a statement of overriding considerations, which is usually based on the economic benefits of a project. And they can use that to approve the project. I think that answers your question, but maybe not completely.
Christy, do you want to make a comment about that?
Yeah, I just wanted to assure everybody from a communications perspective. I'm Christy Hubbard, one of the volunteers, and I just wanted to assure everybody we have absolutely every intent to package up this information and deliver it to the supervisors. So this specific webinar will be delivered to them as public comment. In addition, several of the people on our volunteer team, several of the people that you've listened to today actually have been making appointments with supervisors to share, parts of this information. So we are absolutely sharing.
One of the commenters asked the question whether is there actually a public process for commenting on the economic study, aside from making a date with a supervisor or asking to talk to them?
Well, from what I've heard talking to the county, this was considered a final economic report, so they weren't really going to take comments and make adjustments, but they also encouraged us to submit our comments, and they may consider them. But I think it's important to submit our comments, and hopefully they may not change the economic study, but they'll be considered by the board of supervisors and the planning commission when they make the decision. So it's past the time to submit comments, but I would still go ahead and submit them anyway. They'll probably find their way to the right spot. You can use the link that was used originally, or else we can put up the link of the consultant, the county employee who's handling the project.
One of the questions is addressed to something I think that you talked to, Dr. Chambers, is the that a bond would be typically required for most projects like this. And you gave some kind of figures, some numbers that were pretty wide in range. Based on your kind of assessment of this project, do you have any idea how big a bond for risk mitigation would be a good number for a project like this?
So a typical reclamation bond for a project like this is probably $20 to $40 million, but that's under the assumption that there's no water treatment involved. If there's water treatment involved, then the numbers easily double that. But even at the low end, that's a significant amount of money, and it's basically money that taxpayers are liable for should anything go wrong and the money not be there.
Sure.
That's why it's important.
Okay. I wanted to address a question to Jim and John. You both worked through the RDN's report numbers, which stated an annual output of 61 million in the community impact from the mine. And both of your calculations reached significantly lower figures than the RDN number. And your numbers differed a slight amount. I believe yours was 15 million, Jim, and yours, John, was about 25. And so I just wanted to know, how would you guys explain the difference between your two figures? I know you guys didn't work together, so you kind of looked at stuff independently and came to these conclusions. Can you address that at all?
Well, I significantly reduced the economic impact of 180 full-time mine employees who I believe are going to be commuters, where the majority of their payroll goes out of county, and the only thing they're spending in the county is for shared rent when they're in county working, and for the equivalent of 14 days a month worth of meals. So I calculated that their contribution to the economy is nowhere near the $122,000 a year of a full-time resident family with 2.4 people in the household. It's more like $20,000 a year of money that actually goes to something in the county, be it rent or be it buying groceries or meal. That's the substantial difference between my economic contribution of the employees.
Yeah, that's correct. We both kind of came at this from different directions. And in my case, I was trying to be really conservative about employee disposable income. It's probably substantially less than what I used in the chart. So our numbers sound like they're different, but they're really not.
Okay, yeah. All right. So I'm looking here over the questions. I want to make sure I got everything covered. There's a comment from one of the participants in this tonight's meeting, and her comment is that Nevada County's economy is largely an amenity economy, and that the comparables that were used in the RDN study, and I think Martin sort of pointed at this, were industrial manufacturing economies. And I guess it's more of a comment than a question, but if anyone wants to sort of address themselves to this idea, her comment is that she believes that the consultant really needs to find communities with amenity economies. Amenity, I guess, would mean tourism, right? I'm not sure if there's a question there, but I just wanted
to make a quick comment.
Yeah, sure.
When I was looking at these three different case studies, a couple of them did have a slight bit of a tourism economy. It's a fraction of ours. Both the Coy mine in Tennessee, that's the one that was the closest to a town. Jefferson City, you might recall, was just to the left of the mine. That was the one that did see a drop in values. And they have about $100 million a year tourism economy compared to our $400 million a year. And then the Lincoln mine in Sutter Creek, that's the one where you remember we had the aerial shot showing how the mine was actually quite protected from the rest of the town. They similarly had about $100 million a year tourism economy. I would say, excuse me, I would say that, you know, to the commenter's point here, and as I mentioned, they just couldn't find communities like ours next to facilities like this. You know why? Because people don't do it. This is an unprecedented project, and these three case studies, as I showed in the timelines, were communities that actually have had consistently active operating mines with very brief periods of inactivity. And I agree with the commenter, and that's really the big takeaway from this attempt at finding comparables is there aren't any. This is unprecedented, and we shouldn't be the first.
Okay, thanks. I'm aware of time. It is 7:53 according to my computer clock, and we've gone way over, and I want to give an opportunity to open up to people who want to comment live. And let me just see if we have anybody who's got. So if you would like to make a comment, please raise your hand using the icon at the bottom of the screen, and we will acknowledge you. Okay, I see 1, 2. So Ray Briers, we'll start with you. Okay, I'm going to allow you to talk. So you are live. Go ahead, Ray.
Hi. Previous studies have looked at alternative uses for that property, and they included that in a financial analysis. I did not see that. Can you comment?
Anybody want to take that?
Yeah, I can take that. Yeah, in the previous study that was done for the 2008 project, they did do alternatives, and that economic study was actually included in an EIR document, and they included the no project alternative. And surprisingly, or not surprisingly, the no project alternative was shown to have more economic benefit to the community than the mine project, because it would have allowed normal growth to continue on. It was a different project than this one in many ways. Most of it was on the Idaho-Maryland Road site, the Centennial site. And so they talked about the commercial development, if left to grow at the normal rate, would provide more net benefit to the community and more jobs after 20 years. So, and it would have been nice to have something like that on this report, but it wasn't done, I guess. I don't know why.
I would add that the draft EIR also eliminated without review the option to use the already zoned property for a business park. And they did that because they said that large volume distribution and or auto dismantling and or large planing mills, which are currently zoned, would create just as much noise and traffic, if not more. And I happen to have a lot of background in logistics, and there's no chance any of those operations would locate there today. In today's world, it's just not practical from a logistics standpoint. So they used comparisons again that are not realistic to eliminate the use of the property as a business park.
Thank you. All right, so next person I'm going to allow speak is Itara O'Connell. Itara, go ahead. You're allowed to, and you may need to unmute yourself as well.
Am I unmuted?
You are, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. My comment is just about this. We never really hear about the Superfund site, what's going on with that. That was supposed to be taken care of by this company. And none of that is really addressed in any of these reports. So I just want to make a comment about that. That seems to be a big factor that's not really being addressed anywhere. Thank you.
Ralph, do you want to?
Yeah, I'd comment on that. It's called the Centennial site now, and it's not actually designated as a Superfund site. It was pending a designation when the DTSC took it on, and so the Superfund designation is conditionally deferred as long as the DTSC is working to get it cleaned up. And the progress on that's been slowed, and they don't expect to have a final remedial action plan approved until sometime next year, and the more details on the project won't be done until after June of next year, according to the DTSC schedule. But what's important to note is that the mine intends to dump their mine waste on that site, but it has to be cleaned up first. And this is one of the issues with the draft EIR that we felt needed to be recirculated, and the baseline of that project in its current state needed to be included. And the cleanup needs to be included because otherwise there's no real determination as to whether they'll even be able to use the site or not, and what the status of it will be when they use it, how much economic and environmental impact there will be, and so forth. I hope that answers your question.
So we are at 7:59. I think we really need to wrap this up. And so for those who didn't get a chance to ask their question, I'm so sorry. We just need to end this. And so if you have any questions that you would like to have answers, please just send them to Ralph, Mine Concerns, is that correct?
Mine Concerns, yeah, MineConcerns at cea-nc.org. You can find a link to it probably on the MineWatch site.
Okay.